Hello, I want to thank everybody for joining Asterix and Protein Metrics for today's presentation, Make Better Decisions about your biotherapeutic earlier. Go to the next slide, please. Before we get into the actual content and materials from our friends at Protein Metrics today, the session is being sponsored and brought to you by Asterix Technology. And, we've been working with, thought leaders and you can go back one slide, and technology companies in the lab informatics space now for quite some time. So we want to, if you haven't had any direct interaction with Asterix to date, I want to just tell you briefly a little bit about who we are, and then we'll turn it over to our guests in just a moment. We're an informatics professional services and strategic outsourced solutions company, 100% dedicated to the scientific community. And as far as some stats, we were established back in 1995 and are privately held. We came out of an IT division of APBI, Life Science Research Organization. We operate from 7 offices in the United States and beautiful Costa Rica, and our headquarters are in Red Bank, New Jersey. And we help customers, typically Fortune 1000 life science enterprises, chemical, CPG, government, research institutions, typically with large and fast-growing IT and outsourced needs. And our mission has and always will be to deliver scalable, sustainable solutions to the scientific community. And you can go to the next slide, please. So in terms of what this means, solutions, we spanned the entire life cycle of scientific data systems in the work that we do. And that begins oftentimes with helping companies through the business process analysis and enterprise architecture phases of technology life cycles. And what that means is we typically are helping people understand, first and foremost, what type of technology they need, and then understanding what that technology stack may look like. A good example of that would be if you're looking to do a cloud migration or something along those lines. Then we get involved with helping select the proper technology itself, whether that's bringing in a vendor like a Protein Metrics. That's going to depend exclusively on the results of the first 2. And then from there, we can work to do development and implementation, and then computer systems validation of these systems. And then after the fact, we provide an array of managed services to train, manage, maintain these different systems if need be. And then finally, we actually have people that we can bring in as staff and either staff these systems or staff your laboratory. So that's kind of the role that we play in this world. And of course, we work with a great many vendors in the space like Protein Metrics. And I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. Who's with Protein Metrics. So it's Eric Carlson. He is the president and the CEO, and he joined Protein Metrics back in 2014 as a chief business officer, and he became the president and CEO in 2017. Congratulations for that. And so before joining Protein Metrics, Eric was co-founder and SVP of FreeSlate and spent 12 years at Symix Technologies. He holds a BS in chemical engineering from NC State University, and he received his MS and PhD degrees in chemical engineering from Stanford University. He is also an inventor of 34 published patents. So we are super thrilled to have an opportunity to listen to Eric and have him tell us a little bit about himself and what he's going to go over today. So Eric, I'll go ahead and sit back and enjoy the presentation with the rest of the folks.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thanks for the introduction. And thank you to all our attendees. I'm pleased to be here with you all today. And I am going to be talking a little bit today on taking, advancing your biotherapeutics and doing things earlier and taking some of your things to the enterprise to be able to serve things up. Protein Metrics is a software provider. We have proven solutions for protein characterization. We're based out in the San Francisco area, and today our software is used in over 150 biopharma companies. Using our vendor-neutral software, our customers can provide detailed scientific analysis from any of the mass specs. And it's really what we focus on, is providing detailed characterization based on LC mass spec data. With Biosphere, we offer enterprise access to both the raw data that's coming off those instruments, as well as characterization results, enabling collaboration and scalability across your organization, and allowing you to take those proven workflows into compliant environments. So why mass spec, and why is this important for your organizations? Well, it's key for detailed characterization of proteins. All these biologically derived proteins they're extremely complex, either proteins or protein complexes. Proteins are, of course, sequences of amino acids that are hundreds of sequences long, and that sequence is critical to the shape and function of the protein, and these are often involve heterogeneity of the sequence and various modifications on there. all that can be determined by Mass Spec. And the FDA has long ago kind of identified Mass Spec as a key way of characterizing and providing the details of that, and it's often used for submissions, and to really know that what you're making is what you expect to be making. Data analysis is complex and it's critical. Instruments have really advanced, and to be honest, software development hasn't really kept up with the instruments are able to do. And so we really focused on the post-data acquisition analysis of the data coming off on these samples. Data analysis, of course, often has bottlenecks. When we talk with customers, we often find they're dealing with a patchwork of either vendor software, some home-built solutions, often with Excel macros and PowerPoint and a whole host of Microsoft Office things they're doing. And really what a lot of it means is that their experts spend a lot of time trying to communicate results and conclusions to non-experts. And it can often lead to data silos between analysts and between groups. And so really our focus is to really unblock these bottlenecks with our advanced software. LC Mass Spec scientists really can do quite a lot. And so, our focus is to really extend the impact of what these scientists can do. Our perspective is that this group has unique visibility into the attributes of molecules and programs within their organizations. And we can really help, the organizations to leverage the impact across projects and across the organization. In some cases, they may want to reprocess data or compare data. Certainly, it's important to build a curated, comprehensive view. And really taking this Mass Spec data and be able to connect it to other types of research, biophysical, bioprocess, analytical data is very important. And then as later and later you going into compliant or GXP environments becomes really critical. And that has really been a gap for a lot of LC Mass Spec data in the past. Our data analysis is used across the development spectrum, from early research through the process out to clinical development and production. And there's quite a lot of different workflows that we are used in. And a lot of those are listed here below, whether it's sort of at the intact level, at the peptide level, the chromatogram level. There's a whole variety of different workflows and analyses that we support and that people can take advantage of. In particular, we've got a couple of different products. We have a BIOS product we've had for a long time. It's a desktop product that takes raw data and provides analysis and inspection on today's samples. Our Biosphere product, that I'm going to spend a little more time talking about today, enables enterprise access and compliance readiness. It really connects that raw data to the analysis that you're doing on today's samples to enterprise reporting and collaboration, so you can really share those results out and further querying and analytics as well. I am going to spend a little time talking about compliance today. There's a variety of things that we do for compliance, from versioning to automation to really drive consistency, automated logins. I'm going to leave this screen up here a little bit, not read through everything, but we've really tried to encompass the types of things people want to do so they can really take advantage of the workflows I mentioned 2 slides ago and use those in compliant environments. The other thing I'll mention is that if I go back 2 slides here, not everybody cares about compliance. Of course, when you're in early research or very early development, those analysts are spending much more time there. They're more interested in flexibility and doing early identifications of things. However, there is a lot of things they want to be able to feed to other stakeholders and feed downstream. As later you go, it is more important to be able to inform or support compliant environments. The system we've architected here allows you to deploy the same software into non-compliant and compliant environments without having to either reinstall or recertify things on your deployment. The Biosphere itself is a server-based platform. It's really designed to operate and operate in a cloud or in a private cloud environment. So we can deploy onto our customers' cloud environments, whether it's an AWS instance, an Azure instance, or Google Cloud instance. Data itself can be captured, in the lab, of course. And with an automation client, we can sweep that data in automatically through our application server and store that up in a data repository. We can then designate for various workflows to be run and analyzed and review results. I'll talk a little about that. taking advantage of an analysis server that takes that exists up in the cloud, so you can take advantage of cloud processing. We're able to actually connect with other types of systems, whether it's external data storage from other chromatography-based systems or other data repositories. We can also connect with other LIMS, STMS, or ELN systems as well. And with this system, users can actually access both with a web client as well as with a BIOS client, which is our desktop client as well. And so it gives a lot of flexibility for how users choose to interact with the system. I'm going to, I think, pull out of here, and I think I'm going to share. Yeah, I'm going to come back to this slide in a bit. I'm going to step out of my slides, and I'm going to talk about both the web client and the desktop client and share some live software as well. So let me just pull out this, and I think I'll start with the web client. So I've opened up a Chrome browser. I am pointed to our demo instance here, and in this case, I am running on our demo version of an AWS instance, and I'm going to log in as myself. Let me log in. When I log in, I can see a folder tree view here on the left-hand side. And in this demo view, we've set up to actually be in a folder tree view based on organized by geographic teams. So we have a Basel team, we have an SF team, and a Xanadu team. And within these various teams, we've organized things by therapeutic protein. And as I click through, I can see different content in some of these different folders that's there. Now, access and permissions are controlled by your username and by that membership into various user groups. So as I'm logged in as myself, I can see all these different folders. And one thing you'll see is I have a toolbar up above the folders that allows me to control and edit folder access. As I've said, we've chosen to organize things by folder and by geographic team and by therapeutic protein. I could choose to add folders or organize things however I want. I'm going to log out as myself, and I'm going to log in as Betty the analyst. And when Betty logs in, you'll see that she has a different view. She only sees two of the teams. She sees the Basel team and the Xanadu team. And within those, she actually, she can see these various different therapeutic projects that are actually there. But one thing Betty has not been giving access to is she doesn't have permission to change folders. So we've actually controlled the access of what people can actually do, what they can see, and what they can do within this as well. I'm going to log out as Betty and log back in as myself. So within here, I can look at various projects and see different types of things. I'm going to take a look at a comparability study, and we'll talk about how to get data and analysis in later. But this comparability study is a study on this infliximab sample. And one thing I can do is I can actually see a report of this. So maybe I'm interested in understanding the results. If I click on the pie chart, it gives me the option to download a sample, either through a PDF or a CSV, or I can actually view it right here in the browser. So I can click on that, it'll open up a new tab. And what I can see is a report structured based on the way it was set up. So in this case, I see a coverage view based on this therapeutic protein. This report has tables. So this table actually has a view of basically chain position and what modifications, and we're looking across a number of replicates of biosimilars and originators. So I'm looking at comparisons of different modifications at different sites. Maybe my report actually has a 3D model, and so I could actually look at, in this case, oxidations and be able to see where my oxidation hotspots are as I'm talking with my biologist colleague, understanding how variations are. Maybe I'm interested in glycosylation. And in this case, we are looking at various glycoforms of these originator and biosimilars. Nominally, these are supposed to be biosimilar samples from these four different lots of 2 different samples. Actually, one of the things I can do right here dynamically is I can suppress the major glycoforms in the view, and I can say, well, it's actually quite obvious that there are some significant analytical differences in the originator and biosimilar. Now, maybe that's significant and maybe it isn't, but certainly from a analysis standpoint, we can see the differences, and that supports discussions I'm having either with my various stakeholders and colleagues that are there, and it may inform subsequent discussions or studies that we actually do. All the data that's actually here, which has to do with identifications and quantifications, comes from underlying data, which could be XICs or MS1s or the MS2 fragmentation types of identifications. And that can all be captured and included in the report to make sure that you are supporting whatever conclusions that are actually there that you're passing on to your stakeholders. And all this data can then it's available in our system. It can be connected to other SDMS or electronic notebooks. Another thing actually that's interesting on this enterprise product is the ability to actually think about history of these different projects. So if I click on this bullet icon out here of this study we're looking at, it's going to bring up a list of 16 different versions. I can see this project was originally created back in April of last year of 2020 by my colleague Kasi Lekpour. Kasi then did a couple different, he was actually changing the location and maybe the names of different things. And every time he made a change, it was a timestamp and a name associated with what that actually was. Back a little bit later, I made changes to this. I changed the report. I actually made some changes in some of the analysis. Every change is captured with a timestamp. Every change is here. We can actually attach comments to that. And I'm able to actually download old versions. I can see reports of old versions, and there's actually a history and a record of that. That's obviously important for compliance reasons. It's an immutable record of things that are actually there. I would argue it's important for early development as well. If you're sharing and trying to drive collaboration across the group, so you know who has done what analysis, what stage things are at, what analysis is being done on things, and you've got a full record of everything that's actually there. I'm going to step out of my, this is if you remember, I'm going to go back to this slide. Everything we're doing there is looking at the web client and being able to operate on the web. We have a desktop client that allows us to do a little deeper analysis as well and get some data in there. I'll come back and talk about the automation client in a bit. I'm going to open up my desktop client. We'll launch that. And in this case, I'm going to log in as myself. And when I do that, we see a view of our software. And this view, for those of you that aren't familiar with our software, is a very icon-centric, workflow-centric view of our software. And so each of these icons I'm mousing over represents a different type of analysis workflow that one might want to run. From an intact mass to a post-translational modifications analysis to a higher order structure to a chromatogram analysis, or HCP, a host cell protein analysis. So I could choose to run one of these. I'm going to click on the host cell proteins. I'm going to add samples. In this case, when I click, I see the same folder tree view that I saw when I was on the web browser. I'm going to go ahead and choose some data. In this case, I'm going to choose for my host cell protein data. In this case, we've got 5 samples. These happen to come off an Agilent. They're Agilent.d files from an assay map experiment. I'm going to add a sequence file that's associated with these, also stored up here in this. And now I'm going to say submit a job. I'm going to give this a June 10 webinar demo name. You probably try to spell it properly. And I'm going to choose where to save it. I'm going to save it here in my demoed files. And I'm going to say submit. And so it tells me a job has been sent successfully. Great. So what does that mean? Well, if you recall, I have actually submitted a job here based on a client. I've actually, pinged up and accessed files that were stored on the server. And now something is actually running on the analysis server. So if I go back here and look at this, there's actually a jobs tab. I am actually able to see here in my list of jobs, the June 10th webinar demo project has been queued up. And in a moment, you'll see it's changed from queued to running. And so I have the ability to see what jobs are actually running in the cloud. And other colleagues submitting jobs, I would see a list of jobs that are actually running. You'll see it's changing over to running. I can see the similar view if I come and look at my, we've been looking at the browse view in the web browser. If I were to come here and click on this running man little icon, it would take me over to a similar list of jobs in the web browser view as well. And so at this point, I can go and I can join another meeting. I can go to the lab and prep a set of samples. I could get lunch. It's taking advantage of the cloud processing. I could submit other jobs if I wanted. And what it will do is it's going to run this job and process things. And at some point, when it finishes, it's going to notify me. I mentioned earlier on one of the slides that there was a notification system. In this case, I will get a notification via email. It will tell me a job has completed. And this is an earlier demo I ran. And so I'll get an email, your job is completed. To view results, click here. By clicking here, it'll take me to that particular, if I'm not logged in, it'll ask me to log in. If I am logged in, it'll take me here and show me what was actually run, what was saved. I have a link here to see a history. There's only a single version of this that's been run. I have a history of the files and the sources. In this case, it's a similar one. I've got 5 different raw files. I've got a sequence file and a particular workflow. If I ever needed to rerun this, I have a history of what was run. I can again look at a report and see the report right here, or I could jump back and see where this is saved. So that's great. It allows me to be very focused. I can focus on the science and really let the cloud do the processing. And to the extent I, as an analyst, need to review results, is queuing up results for me to do a quick review and really facilitate that review to understand what's actually there. I'm going to head back to my slides. Hey, talk a little about the automation. So I've shown you how to sort of queue up a manual analysis of things. One of the nice things is that you really can take advantage of automation. We've got a lot of customers doing this today. And this is true whether you're doing early clone selection, you're screening lots of samples. It can be true in late stage if you're doing product release or doing something in a GXP lab where you're doing the same type of workflow again and again, and it's really important to drive consistency. In this case, the automation, I'll step forward on this, we'll talk about this automation client. We actually have this automation module, has a file watcher system. So we're able to watch some sort of external data source that's actually there. As soon as data appears, we're able to grab that file, parse that, and send that up to the application server. So it is fully automatable and hands-free. Input files are packaged up for processing. They aren't modified at all. So we've got very consistency, and we aren't modifying any of the raw files. And the results then, we either can set it up so that the raw file is automatically sent to the our system for subsequent manual processing, or we can set it up so that there's actually logic built in, and the raw file itself is automatically processed, whether it's a single file or whether it knows to look for multiple files, whether it's on a stress study or a force degradation study or something like that. In which case, it would automatically process that file in an automatic way. It would automatically create a report, store the results, and notify the relevant set of people for doing whatever appropriate review is actually there. Again, when somebody looks at those, there'd be a record of any of the source files used that's actually there. So you can actually know what's there, and you can actually have a record of that and be able to reproduce things. Clearly, if you were doing things in a compliant lab, you'd want an audit trail. An audit trail of all the individual actions and what everybody does in terms of reviewing retention times or making different changes to things is all there. That is available in that desktop client. It's also available in the web client. And so it's there if it's ever needed some sort of, an audit trail for report, it's available. I talked before about project level version history, which is also very important. And you can see, different versions that are actually there. And one of the things that could be important for compliance is the ability of signing and locking of projects. So within that, it could be set up to have in a regulatory option so that a user has an ability to actually sign, approve, or reject different projects that are actually there. And so you can imagine this as sort of a signature state of any project that's actually there. You actually have a name associated with that. Signing or approving requires a particular password to actually be there. Once it's there, you have a signed state or a signature state that's actually visible in there, and that can also be enabled with notifications. Again, quite a bit is available here in terms of different compliance capabilities. I think one of the things I wanted to hop back into talk to in terms of, in addition to compliance, is some querying. Let me see here. I've got some slides and other things. Let me hop over and show back to the web browser. Find my mouse. Here it is. Go back here to my browse view. So we've been looking at the the browse view quite a bit. It may be that you have results and one wants to do a fair bit of querying. So rather than looking for an individual file, which is what the system did to target an individual file that was completed, this is an enterprise product. I may want to search for files. What have I done? What has my group done? So I can query for things I've done. I can query for maybe something that a team member has actually done and see different types of things that are there. We've been looking at infliximab. Maybe I want to look for infliximab. I can see a lot of results. I can see I have results returning across a number of different project folders. All these search results are tied to my username and my permissions. So if you recall, I have permissions to see across all different teams that are actually here. If I were to log out and log back in as Betty, the analyst, you recall Betty only sees 2 of these team folders. And if Betty comes and looks for infliximab, you will see Betty sees results, but she sees a shorter list than I do because she has a narrower list of folders she has access to. And in fact, if I were to log out as Betty, we'll come back here and we'll log out as Betty. And let's say I have someone on my team, John Doe, the contractor. And he either is contracted with me or he's working at a CRO that we're contracted with. And perhaps with John, we've set up so John can work on protein 123. And within this project, John's got, he can load in raw data, he can do projects, he can even add subfolders. There's a lot of stuff he can do because I want him to really go deep with the project. But if John Doe got curious and wanted to search for, hey, what are these guys doing with infliximab? You would return their results. He does not have permission. So all the querying and all the things there are based on the context of who's logged in and the user permissions they actually have, which are all controlled by the admin of the user and the organization that's setting these up. I'm going to show you one more thing here. I'm going to log out as John Doe, log in as myself. One of the things the querying enables you to do is possibly think about and do more complex types of reports, and even do reporting across projects. This is an example of a system suitability. System suitability, maybe you're interested in, you've got a sample that you're running over time, just make sure you're consistent either in your sample prep or your instruments giving the same type of results. It's a system that nominally you know what the results you should have. So I've got a lot of analyses that are actually in here. I am going to look at these. We've actually created a multi-doc report. You can see some of these are multi-doc reports. I'm going to pull up a multi-doc report, this particular one. You'll see this particular one is a multi-doc report, and it's a multi-doc report that's comprised of 6 or 7 underlying of these BLGC projects. These are our project files, an example of which I showed earlier. Each of these projects has within it 4 or 5 raw files, and they can be gathered over different times. And so we are basically assembling a multi-doc report over projects that were gathered in time. And from this, I can pull up a report. So rather than reprocessing everything, I'm actually assembling data across different projects to assemble a new report. It could have bar charts. I could be looking at error bars of different, in this case, I'm looking at peptides, understanding how variable they are across my different analyses that are actually here. I could look at a pass fail. In these cases, these are all passing across these different peptides to make sure that I'm consistent. This could be set up with some sort of notification so that if something fell outside of a particular performance parameter that the user set, is a group that's notified, to look at either some sort of sample prep or instruments type of thing as well. Ultimately, I'm going to come back to slides. I've spent a lot of time talking about LC Mass Spec. It is a set of complex data that historically has been underserved in the terms of enterprise software access. Everything we're doing here allows you to extend beyond LC Mass Spec, and you could connect to other types of either bioprocess or analytical types of data, whether it comes from FTIR, DSC, other types of data as well. Be able to capture that and ultimately do querying. And I guess what I'd like to leave you with is the idea that it's a very scalable process. I mentioned before that a lot of groups we talk with end up with very siloed groups where there is very limited types of collaboration. And it also makes it very difficult to drive consistency across the groups and a real barrier to build any sort of business intelligence to really know how you can pull data together. This Biosphere product really allows you to drive consistency across your organizations, really drive that, and the consistency allows you to scale and drive intergroup and intersite collaboration. You can do hands-free automation for thousands of samples with cross-project querying and allowing multi-doc reporting, and ultimately take any of these analysis downstream into GXP compliance as your molecules flow downstream. I think with that, I'm going to thank Kevin and thank the audience, and I am happy to talk about questions.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Eric. Give me 1 sec here to get the recording